Today, we will be speaking about advocating for justice for Tamils, the UNHRC, and the next steps following Tamil Genocide Education Week. Let's look into the following definitions. Advocacy means public support for or recommendation of a particular cause or policy. Justice means the process or result of using laws to fairly judge and punish crimes and criminals. Right now, Tamils around the world are advocating for justice for Tamils on the island of Sri Lanka, as the perpetrators of the Tamil genocide have not yet been convicted for their crimes. For many years, Tamils have been calling for justice. Organizations such as the National Council of Canadian Tamils, Canadian Tamil Youth Alliance, and Tamil Youth Organization have been advocating for Tamils affected by the genocide. These organizations, along with members of the Tamil community, have gone to the United Nations and met with members of the UN General Assembly, as well as met with many government officials to advocate for justice for Tamils. While this has been occurring outside of the country of Sri Lanka, Tamils on the island continue to advocate for themselves as well, calling for justice despite the continuous threats against the Tamil people by Sri Lankan military and government officials of the country. So how can we, as a Canadian community, help these Tamil people advocate for justice? Think about this. If you were in their position, where your families and friends were being killed because of the language they spoke, because of the culture they follow, how would you react? Some things that you can take into consideration when advocating is doing your research. There are many outlets to retrieving information, and you can also contact any Tamil organization as well to retrieve more information. After doing this research, bring attention. Talk to family, friends, and peers. Bring this into light, as more awareness brings us to another stage in advocating for justice, and that much closer into achieving justice for Tamils overall. If you want to learn more, ask questions. The best way to learn about this is to ask. As said before, there are many outlets of information, and this can be confusing as well. Ask someone that may have gone through this, and they will be more than happy to speak to you, especially about their experiences of the Tamil genocide. The United Nations Human Rights Watch has reported that the report issued on February 25, 2022, documents discrimination against religious and ethnic minorities and security forces targeting of civil society groups, while accountability for past abuses has been blocked. This report is one of the more recent reports that have been issued discussing a lot of the mistreatment and genocide that Tamils have faced and continue to face. Tamils on the island continue to face abuses, especially when it comes to remembering their dead kin. The Sri Lankan government has responded to international scrutiny of its rights record with a false and misleading public relations offensive, said Meenakshi Ganguly, South Asia Director at Human Rights Watch. UN member countries should redouble their efforts to press the Sri Lankan government to make real progress on rights. These quotes directly from the United Nations Human Rights Watch clearly show that there is a dire need for action, and advocacy is the best way to achieve it. A resolution passed by the UN Human Rights Council accused Sri Lanka of obstructing accountability. Yasmin Sukha, a rights lawyer involved in a civil prosecution against Sri Lanka's current president, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, for alleged war crimes, said the resolution was hugely significant for victims. It really is a recognition that at the domestic level, processes have failed and there is no hope that victims will access justice, she told the Reuters news agency. The United Nations has called out Sri Lanka for its atrocities, and it is known around the world that the Sri Lankan state has carried out a genocide against the Tamil population. But why have the perpetrators not been brought to justice? How have they been getting away with it for so long? It's because there is not enough attention to the issue right now. That is why advocacy is so important. It starts in your own homes, your classrooms, and your community. Individuals like Netflix star Maitri Ramakrishnan have stated, "I made it very clear to my agent and publicist that Tamil Canadian is very, very important to me. My identity isn't being Sri Lankan. You can see that being considered Sri Lankan, especially as a Tamil individual, can be horrifying. It is being accounted for as a part of a state that committed genocide against the Tamil people." Individuals like another Netflix star, Charitra Chandran, has even stated, "My dream production, whether I'm producing or starring in it, I'd love to make a film about the crisis in Sri Lanka with the Tamil population. I think it is so complex and nuanced. The situation with the Tamil Tigers and the Sri Lankan government, the genocide that happened, it's something obviously near and dear to my heart because it's my community." Bringing the Tamil cause to light has been the forefront for many individuals, whether it be by dance, music, art, acting, or advocacy. We also have another well-known star, Madangi or Maya, or better known as by her stage name, MIA, who advocated so much for Tamils. She has even made music videos about the Tamil genocide, like using the song Paper Planes and Borders. She also made a documentary about her life, and she brought into attention the Tamil genocide as well. After making such music, Sri Lankan state officials have tried to bring her down, stating that she has been spreading lies. MIA continues to advocate for Tamil people any chance that she gets and brings awareness to the Tamil genocide as well. On May 6, 2021, Member of Provincial Parliament Vijay Thanigasalam moved the Bill 104 Tamil Genocide Education Week, in which it finally became an act. Tamil Genocide Education Week establishes May 12th to 18th as a week in which Ontarians are encouraged to educate themselves about and to maintain their awareness of the Tamil genocide and other genocides that have occurred in world history.